Welcome back, everybody. It's come to the time where we will be having our interactive leaders roundtable discussion. So we've heard from all of the financial services experts today. So we're going to spend a little bit of time kind of discussing some of the ways that both Nationwide and Western Alliance Bank have both adapted within the tumultuous year that 2020 was, as well as talk generally about what the overall Oracle EPM impact was to both organizations. So I would like to kick it off with a starting question for Val. What is the single most important thing your team did to adapt during 2020? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, that's a great question. You'll love the answer. The answer is nothing. And what I don't mean to sound flippant, but what I mean by that is that COVID-19 kind of accelerated trends we've already been seeing. So in terms of moving towards more cloud computing, moving towards remote access, automation, AI, I think those were trends, those were larger trends that we were seeing in the marketplace, and COVID-19 just accelerated that. My perspective actually is a bit richer. During the early 90s, I actually worked for a Japanese bank in the World Trade Center. And then there was a bombing in the basement, if you recall. So all the businesses were shut down for several months. And when that happened, we had to open up a kind of a disaster recovery site. We had one, but we actually never used it. So we had to get that up and running, and that took several days. So we were actually out of commission for several days. And for a bank, that's big. That's really big. When COVID-19 hit, and we realized that we were probably better off working remotely, we were able to do it without skipping a beat. First of all, we're cloud-based. Second of all, we all have laptops here. So we're very used to working remotely. And even if we didn't have our laptops, cloud-based application means that all you need is an internet connection. So we adapted to this change to working remotely without changing any of our processes. In terms of what that meant for the business, for like forecasting, there was this PPP loan program that the government subsidized. But for us, that's just another flavor of loan. So we just created new PPP accounts and account roll-ups to track that. COVID-19 also had a disparate effect on reserves because there was a lot of uncertainty. But again, for us, that's kind of business as usual. So we didn't really change our forecasting process. So some additional reserves because of the uncertainty of COVID-19. But again, we were able to handle that without changing functionally what we really did.
Yeah, that's great. You guys were proactively kind of ahead of the curve with everything. And I'm sure during that time, it was a testament to the power of the Oracle EPM solution. So that's great. All right, next question is for Lori. What business processes have you had to adjust and how based on the impact of the pandemic?
I think from a business process similar to Val, our business processing kind of went on as planned throughout 2020. We still were able to close the books, complete quarterly forecasts, get all of the management reporting that was requested by senior leaders in our board on the same time frame and schedule. What was more changing from a nationwide perspective was leveraging the technology that our IT group had put at our hands. For some time, we've been using Microsoft Teams and different ways of sharing documents and information, but we were just kind of more enabled and more equipped to doing that, turning on the video so we could connect. And I think it was more of the softer side of things that changed. It was, how are you going to connect with your own individual teams or your business partners that you support in a totally 100% virtual environment? So we've done the things like, these types of meetings where we can see each other, still connect that way, doing things via the, chat within Teams, those types of things. But all of our core business processes still went, we didn't change any of our timeframes due to the pandemic, but it's more of the softer side, connecting with people, connecting with our business partners, that required a little bit of change, because maybe a little bit different than in Val's organization. We have a large presence that are come into the office every day, and there was not a large presence of work from home prior to the pandemic. And sending our entire workforce predominantly home was definitely a shift.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of organizations experience that as well. So yeah, that's really good. It's kind of good insight. I guess my next question is for Adam. Did the tumultuous time drive you toward EPM Cloud sooner than expected?
We've been looking at EPM and going cloud-based. It's been on our IT roadmap for a number of years. So it's definitely a destination we're heading towards. But the timing actually, it kind of coincided well, I guess, with the like Larry was saying, kind of the more Microsoft Teams focus. So we're able to leverage some more of the technology and some of those different tools that we've had. And we had also started, I guess coincidentally, kind of like I think the year before last year, the year before the pandemic, more of a digitalization effort where we were trying to like kind of across the enterprise, kind of do more of a training and focus towards the associates, I guess, for more of a digitalization or more of like a cloud-based focus. So that kind of lended itself well, I guess, to the kind of the more of the this EPM cloud focus and some of the things that we were talked about earlier during the presentation, like shifting some of the roles and responsibilities from the IT house over to more of the finance area. So I think some of that, it all kind of came together. So I'd say look at the silver lining of the whole COVID thing, but I think a number of those variables did come together at the same time, and we were able to leverage Teams and kind of work remotely to kind of implement the EPM cloud project.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like Nationwide was kind of proactively ahead of stuff as well. And it's pretty amazing how, we have all worked in technology for so long, but how just implementing additional technologies has really brought us all together in a virtual place. So I think that's amazing. My next question is for Steve. What was your team's biggest driver in selecting Oracle EPM Cloud versus other software platforms in the marketplace?
Thank you. So we don't really have one driver. We actually use multiple different kind of factors to determine what tools we want to move to. And I guess specifically from EPM Cloud, we were actually on some of the Oracle EPM Cloud tools prior to when they bundled everything together. So we're actually, we have FCCS and we have, EPRCS changed narrative reporting, and now we have EPCS as well as ADW. However, when we look at what tools we want to bring in, we like to make sure that we're following our corporate enterprise technology kind of like roadmap, and we have a cloud first mindset. So that's the goal of that is to reduce the on-prem upgrades that we have, right? So that's a major goal that we have, as well as being able to provide capability faster to our business partners. Secondly, I would say business familiarity. They're already familiar with the Hyperion planning tool because we already have that on premise. We actually brought in PBCS just to get kind of a feel for it many years ago. So that's how we got onto the roadmap with this tool. And then just the integration that we have between ePPCS and the other cloud versions of the EPM tools. That's another one of the main drivers that we had for this.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the integration is so powerful. All right, Val, one more question for you. What advice would you give to other clients who are thinking about moving to Oracle EPM Cloud?
Oh, okay. So in addition to EPM, we also decided to sort of strengthen our reporting with a BI business intelligence tool. And we actually settled on Oracle OAC, Oracle Analytics Cloud. And this is kind of an interesting, subject. I was hired here and we didn't have a BI tool. And in my previous engagement at Chase Bank, our BI tool was Tableau. And I was very instrumental in bringing that up to speed and using it. So when the notion came about to adding a BI tool to FP&A, I was 100% for Tableau. So we ended up having a bake-off between Tableau, Oracle OAC, a couple of other smaller firms, and actually Microsoft Power BI as well. And again, from my previous experience, I really like Tableau. First in class in terms of presentation, ease of use, fantastic. Oracle for me was kind of a second, but then I decided to take a big step backward and think sort of holistically. Okay, if I went down the path of going through, getting this tool for just FP&A, that would benefit FP&A, but would that really benefit the firm? So the advice I have is to take a step backward and think, does this help the firm in total? And our feeling was that, a standalone BI product itself, not really integrated into everything else, might be good, but that's not really the wave of the future, right? So if you think about everyday items that you use, your phone, music, directions, they're all in one item now. So the trend is to have a lot of functionality in one place. And that's where sort of Oracle is sort of headed. So within OAC, and it's been added to, Oracle Fusion. So we saw the future as having multifunctional capabilities within one platform. Eventually, they haven't really announced it. I don't know when they will, but eventually EPM2 will be able to integrate with their GL product, with OAC, with everything that's out there. And so our thought was, let's take a bet for the future, not really just go for a standalone product that answers one particular question or solves one particular problem.
That's great. And I think a lot of organizations should be thinking that way. The integration of the totality of the solution is definitely powerful for all organizations.
Absolutely.
Okay. I have one final question for Adam. Let's do you. What are some of the things you wish you had known before starting your EPM cloud implementation?
Yeah, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
Probably some of the things that we kind of ended with, the just the sheer amount. A lot of our project was kind of integrating a lot of the upstream data sources and kind of the input on the input side. So it was just kind of maybe getting a better understanding up front of some of the complexities and the amount of kind of work and detail, I guess, on some of those inbound feeds, just to kind of streamline it. Because then once that gets into the process, then it just kind of snowballs and you can kind of test and design and iterate and get in front of everybody. So I think that would be one of the, I guess, I wish we knew a little bit more. And then I think we did do a good job on the change management side, and we had change agents as well. But maybe integrating we went with the FCOE, kind of single representatives from each of the areas. So maybe bringing them online maybe a little bit sooner rather than later in the game might have been just to help with the transition. I think we did get everybody up to speed, and once we went live, and we've gone through a couple cycles now, and I think the ball, like I said during the presentation, the ball's rolling, and I think we're making a lot of progress in continuing kind of the continuous improvement app. But it might be, if in hindsight, I guess maybe starting that group in those meetings maybe a little bit earlier in the process might have been a little bit advantageous to kind of go with it. That and I like the cloud, and I like that we're on EPM and we're getting the latest and greatest versions of the software. So I think that's a plus. But on the downside too, we had kind of looked at some reports that we were building in a separate the EPRCS application, and then the report functionality kind of changed, kind of right before we went live. So it's how do we pivot to the new functionality or things like that? So it's I guess the evergreen continuous updates are kind of a two-edged sword, where it's good to have, and I want to have the latest and greatest versions and the new enhancements and features. But on the flip side, there's some a little bit of change, I guess, to kind of respond to or react to, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can understand that. Well, you brought up change management, and I think that's so important in any implementation as your employees are adapting to new products and processes. Are there any additional aspects that any of you have around some of the change management tactics that you implemented to help your employees easily adapt to the new solution? Val, anything you guys did in terms of change management?
Yeah, two things. One is a miss on our part, and the other one was a success. The miss on our part was we did not involve IT security early enough in the conversion process. So when we went to the cloud, we were the first unit actually to use cloud software within the bank. And we just, for whatever reason, we didn't engage IT security. And they just kept shutting us down for whatever access we wanted. They just shut us down. So in hindsight, that was a mistake. We should have included them early. Now we're buddies, of course. The second thing is that we adopted the train the trainer technique. So we would, take somebody who had some working knowledge of EPM and access via smart view, because everybody's good on spreadsheets, and we would just propagate that person, that knowledge base, throughout various various lines of businesses within finance. And that sort of helped ease that transition so that, when we went live, it wasn't this big, brand new application no one had ever heard of. People had seen it, they were familiar with it. We had given them smart view templates to play around with. And we had opened up the test environment for them to do so. So we had started doing our training and our exposure pretty early.
Yeah, that's good. I think you brought up a good point. Communication and having true subject matter expertise is really critical as part of change management. Lori or Steve, anything else you want to add in terms of some of the aspects of change management best practices or lessons learned that you implemented at Nationwide?
We did a couple other, I mentioned the town halls, but we hosted large town halls throughout our project where we kind of gave them updates on the project. We'd show some high level demos or trying to talk about things that are coming down the pipe. Those were really well received. Those conference room pilots where we actually got them in and showed them portions of the tool, those were well received. We also had a SharePoint site where we would do like leader blogs, like every so often, kind of talking from a leader's perspective, what they were excited about. And then we also did it from some end users. So we kind of tried to make it some fun as well for the groups that were changing. I'd say the training piece is always a tricky one. We pushed off the training until close to go live so that it was fresh and in their minds. But then it's probably never quite enough, or they have feedback on what they'd like to be included or updated. So what we said is that we'll kind of do continual training as we just completed our first quarter forecast in the new tools, but we'll do other additional trainings as we either have new users or new functionality to share. So just timing that up with the project go live, as well as trying to get users feedback on it. But those things seem to work really well.
Yeah, those are great best practices. Steve, anything else to add from your perspective? I know your team's kind of covered a lot.
Communication, lots of communication, right? And even then, we took a retrospective of the first project, and that was kind of the key theme of even needing to communicate even more. I think the disconnect of how the project was going, but maybe how the base users who hadn't quite gotten into the system yet felt, there was a disconnect there, and maybe having some more conversation with our constituency of business partners to make sure that they understood kind of how the system was going to come up, and because they would see these reports, everything's going fine, but they hadn't gotten into the system yet, so they didn't have a good feel for it. So just more communication.
I think you're right on. Yep, it's so critical. Let's communicate early and often and across the organization just to make sure everybody's on board. So that is great. Well, I want to open it up to the audience. Does anyone have any questions for our panel members? We'll give it a second or two. All right, any questions? Just put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Well, I think the lack of questions demonstrates what a very, very comprehensive job you guys did. So thank you all very much. I think at this point it's a wrap, and I just wanted to let everybody know we'll be making the recording available on interRel's website tomorrow. So if you had any colleagues who were not able to attend, certainly feel free to share the link to the recording. And I want to give a special thank you to all of you, the presenters. It has been such a really interesting, informative day. So thank you all very much for attending. And I will let you all get back to your day. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Have a good day now.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.